Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! I brought my lunch, boss.
You are here to fill the position of nincompoop, yes? No?
That's me!
Then why do you not use the nincompoop entrance?
Okie dokie!
Ed, and Eddy was a cartoon that ran from 1999 to 2009, and I loved every minute of it, or up until at least season 5 when the Eds had to go to school. At least Big Picture Show was a good finale. Despite their later episodes being kind of meh, the first 3.5 seasons held up extremely well, with only a few duds here and there, especially in season 4. Sorry, wrong yet. Due to the immense popularity of the show, Cartoon Network decided to release a few video games, the first one being Jawbreakers on the Game Boy Advance, and the third one being Scam of the Century on the DS. I haven't played them, but they got some pretty mediocre reviews and were pretty forgettable. The second game, the Mis-Edventures, great pun by the way, was also released to some mediocre reviews in mid-fall of 2005, just when Season 5 was about to start. Oh, the disappointment. I remember seeing commercials for this game and always going to Movie Gallery to see that they never had a copy for me to rent. I was also just getting into YouTube at the time and looked up a walkthrough of the game and being disappointed that I couldn't play the game for myself since I was 7, didn't have a license, job, or allowance to help me buy the game. After a year or two, the game sort of faded into obscurity and I kind of forgot about it. But once I got my own debit card and YouTube started monetizing my videos, I was browsing eBay and decided to order a copy of the game. Huzzah, let's play this bitch. So you start the game and, wow, Comic Sans, perfect. We're in for a ride, ladies, gentlemen, and JC Harsh. So you start a new save and you're immediately thrown into the first level. Cool, you're Ed. The objective here is to go around and steal ice from others to help Eddy's scam of making snow cones. Okay, this is the first thing you see in the game and it sets the mood perfectly. Most great games do this really well, like Mega Man X, Conker's Bad Fur Day, you name it. Normally, the first level would introduce you to what the game has in store for you. The Mis-Edventures does this extremely well. Just from the first level, you can see how cheap and boring this game is going to be. First off, just look at this animated cutscene. It looks so poorly made in Flash, which it was. It's so damn stiff, and they make the outlines jitter to give some sort of impression that it was hand-drawn, which it wasn't. But hey, you thought the 2D cutscenes were bad? Check out these in-game cutscenes. I guess it's a positive that they got the entire voice cast from the show to come back to play their characters, but it's really jarring hearing their voices come out some pretty ugly-looking cutscenes.
However, if we were to stand on each other in a sort of tower, our single body would allow all of us to more easily traverse this board without falling off.
Huh?
These characters just didn't transfer well into 3D. I mean, Rolf and Ed are the only ones I think look well, but some characters like Eddy have that Sonic fan film problem where his mouth stretches around his entire face. Actually, Eddy's probably the most disturbing looking character in the game.
Hey, Johnny!
Their outlines are even jittering. I can't tell if this is because the animators were trying to be authentic towards the show, or the models are just glitching out. Why couldn't this be properly cel-shaded? Some of these cutscenes can give off a really so bad it's funny sort of vibe. Alright, the controls seem pretty basic. You can switch through Eds using the L trigger, which is alright, but couldn't they just do what Sonic Heroes did, where you could use 2 different buttons to switch the characters? So you know the pacing could be faster? I mean, this game is basically just Sonic Heroes, but with the Eds, except not as creative or fun or good. Now, I know what you're all thinking. I like Sonic Heroes? Yes I do. Fuck you. Anyways, pressing the R trigger can make the Eds activate their special move. Ed can run very fast with Double D and Eddy hanging on for dear life. Double D can have Ed and Eddy give him a boost, and Eddy can climb on top each Ed in order to get through certain obstacles. The first couple of levels introduce you to these moves pretty well through cutscenes, text that appear on screen, and in-game dialogue banter, and no, there's no way to turn the instructions off. No matter how many times you play these levels, the game still acts as if you're playing it for the first time. Just continue enjoying that Comic Sans. Even though it is great they got the original cast to come back to voice this game, that doesn't mean their audio's very clean. Just listen to that compressed Jimmy.
Stop it! Just go away!
Okay, so you dick around with Sarah and Jimmy, which involves you getting their stuffed animals wet and tossing squirrels into Ed's house. Yes, I said Ed's house, because I'm pretty sure he and Sarah live in the same house. The kitchen's destroyed, but it's all worth it for the scam, right? Wait, can't they just collect the ice they need from that fridge alone? Oh, whatever. So you end up on Rolf's farm where the Eds come across a machine that makes giant radishes. I got that info from Rolf, by the way, because artificial mind and movements graphics are so good that I seriously thought these were meatballs.
Halt! Who riles Rolf's radish?
Why did Rolf make that pose? When I first saw that, I thought we were about to have a boss battle with Rolf in the first level. But instead, Rolf tells the Eds to piss off because they're not the son of a shepherd or something. So the Eds go back outside and set Rolf's pigs free, and Rolf's like, well, what the fuck, put my pigs back. So you put the pigs back, then Rolf lets you use his machine. Cunt. In another poorly done flash animation, we see the Ed scam is actually working until Ed starts eating the snowballs, and that apparently means the scam isn't gonna work. Why? You have plenty of ice, just make more snowballs! After the first level, you're teleported to the game's hub, which is the cul-de-sac. I'll admit, this is a pretty decent representation of Ed's hometown. It is pretty small, but it's actually the main thing that made me want to buy this game as a kid. But I think C. Wardy, I don't know how to say it, made a better map in Gary's mod. One thing that's pretty irritating is that you don't have a map that tells you where each level is. Some people say the levels can be played in any order since there's barely any continuity between them, but the pause menu has them labeled in numbers. So my OCD says no. By the way, the Ed and Eddy theme plays on loop in the pause menu. It may not sound that bad, but after hearing the same damn 30-second tune over and over again, can get really annoying really fast. I understand why this would be used for the title screen, but why the pause menu? The only way to turn it off is through the options menu, but that also turns off all the music in the game. I guess while I'm on the subject of music, the game just reuses tracks that are from the show. I really want to consider that a huge positive because I love Ed and Eddy's soundtrack, and Patrick Guittard is a great sound composer. But this further adds to the fact of how lazily made this game is. Using an example from a much better based off a cartoon video game, Battle for Bikini Bottom, it didn't reuse stock background music from SpongeBob. They had a composer come in and create new tracks that fit the game and actually sounded like something that would play on SpongeBob. One great example is whenever you go to the Murmurlair level, you'd assume they'd play The Line Man, which is the theme song of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy on the show, but instead, they actually made a new version of the theme and it sounded great. I guess they didn't want to top Patrick Cared, but I still feel like this was a missed opportunity. Oh well, on to the next level. Pin the tail on the Ed. In this level, the Eds find out they're not invited to a birthday party for Jimmy, and are told by Rolf to fuck off. Eddy is irritated by this, but Ed recommends they crawl through the sewers and find a way to Jimmy's party, breaking and entering at its finest. This level can easily be the most frustrating if you decide to play as Double D. Why? Because for some incredibly stupid reason, his main attack seems to have a full second delay before it can affect an enemy. Why? That's not fun. Did the game designers think they were being authentic towards the characters or something? Eddy and Ed's attacks respond quickly. Does Double D have that delay because he's the weakest member of the three? Man, this game is so incredibly accurate to the show, 10 out of 10. Alright, the level itself is actually pretty boring. All the environments are the same gray and brown, with the only sources of color coming from the Eds, Johnny, and the enemies. There's also these rats that come out of sewer holes that you can break easily to stop them from spawning. Then there are the sewer alligators who are so annoying, especially if you play as Double D! Just use Ed's L attack, it makes you invulnerable and can kill the enemies faster. So you bump into Johnny who's fishing for clams, and alright, I'll give them that. There is indeed an episode where Johnny had a bucket of clams, so clearly they got his fascination with clams down pretty well. But Johnny ends up finding a wheel that the Eds need to lead to the sewer's exit. Johnny, of course, tells them he'll give them the wheel if they drain the sewer so they can get more clams. So the Eds do just that, and for some reason, Eddy decides to fuck with Johnny by messing with Plank. For no reason. Johnny just sort of left Plank there. Can we please move along? The level's almost over. The Eds exit the sewer and end up at Jimmy's party, and oh my god, the frame rate's really taking a dip. Why is it so laggy? So they use Triplet to break a few pinatas, and one of them contains the Kanger sisters, who have a severe obsession with wanting to kiss the Eds and possibly sexually assault them on numerous occasions. One weird thing is that the sisters will appear in other levels through secret doors and they'll just blow kisses at you, and it's usually when Double D's trying to activate something. It's mildly annoying. A boss battle starts, which consists of Double D knocking a few fridges and beehives over Marie until the Kankers get the message that they should just fuck off. So the Eds get rid of the Kangaroo sisters, but Kevin tells them the party's over and that there's no cake left. Great. What was even the point of this level? That's a problem most of these stories have. There's no moral or deeper meaning behind them that even the cartoon was able to pull off. Must be something I add. While the Eds are up to their goofy antics, they are told that the candy store is giving away free Jawbreakers, so they rush over there before it's closing time and— wait, isn't that the plot of Don't Rain on My Ed? Yeah, it is. Instead, they're told this information by Rolf instead of Nas, and instead of the candy store closing in 10 minutes, Double D says it's closing in any minute. Nice, it could be closing in like 2 hours and they wouldn't give a shit. They have plenty of time. If they're so fascinated and motivated to get Jawbreakers from the store, then why don't they carry around like a watch or something and figure out when the open hours for the candy store are? So the level starts and— wait, weren't we on the street just a load screen ago? Okay, so we're in someone else's yard and—
We're in the wrong yard! We need to get out of here!
since when did Eddy care about trespassing? So during this adventure, you get Jimmy's dolls out of a tree and you bump into Kevin, who forces you to knock down some trash cans with a basketball to see how cool you really are. Or else you're dorks? After that, you come across a swarm of bees who are in your way, so you knock Johnny down, the bees go after him, problem solved. In the last part of the level, you open a door, and unlike the episode where the Eds just barely make it to the candy store while going through one of the most brilliantly animated, most emotionally gripping scenes out of the entire series, the Eds actually make it just before closing time. But—
Eddy, wait! They're not fit for human consumption.
What's happening to my face?
You're having an allergic reaction, Eddy.
so Eddy's face turned green with orange spots, write that down, and needs to make it home without anyone seeing him. This means hiding in a box Metal Gear style to get around a dog, and passing by Johnny by doing something. You're supposed to use Tower of Eddy to hide behind these posts, but that never fucking works. So I usually just keep my distance and then pass by him when he's not looking. Then you get to Nas, and you could either pass by her in the box or just have Double D ring the school bell so Nas could go to class. I assume this level takes place during the weekend or something. Why is she going to school during the weekend? Then you come across Sarah and Jimmy, and you throw some paint at Jimmy while he's painting Sarah. Then the game gives you another option to either sneak past them in a bush or just use one of Eddy's gas balloons to go— wait, what? Yeah, one of Eddy's special moves is this gas balloon that you can use, but I never use it. Ever. I mean, Jimmy was holding a Jawbreaker that you could collect, but after you collect it, you basically never use this attack ever again. What's the point of an attack if you only use it for one completionist purpose? Okay, so after you get past Sarah and Jimmy, you bump into Kevin again, and you use Double D to use this tractor to sneak past Kevin. I love how you're supposed to be hiding from Kevin, but he still makes comments about the Eds being there.
Get away from me, dorks!
Once the level ends, you get another poorly made cutscene of the Eds in Eddy's room. All looks clear until everyone pops up at Eddy's window and takes photos of his face. By the way, Eddy's face is now grayish green, no orange spots. Nice consistency, game. Also, way to rip off another episode. Ed on arrival. The Eds bump into Rolf wearing his Urban Ranger uniform, and Eddy acts as if he's never seen the Urban Rangers before and wants to earn a badge. Rolf says he'll have them go through a few puzzles, and if they succeed, they'll get a badge. If they fail, the badge goes to Kevin. Eddy, of course, will not have that, so he accepts Rolf's challenge. I'll admit, this level isn't half bad. It does have some issues, but the level itself is pretty decent. Each of the Ed's abilities are used up to their full potential, aside from the gas balloons, and I really like the bits where Batter Ed gets to run down a track. Helps complement how smooth the controls are. Again, there are issues with the level, but it's mostly in the cutscenes. For example, when you bump into Rolf, he's in his regular clothing instead of his Urban Ranger uniform. This wouldn't be all that annoying, but the ending cutscene shows Rolf back in his Urban Ranger uniform. Did he change clothes twice for no reason? Would it have really cost too much money to make a different model of Rolf in his Urban Ranger's uniform? Also, in the last segment of the level, you have to race Kevin. There's a timer that tells you when to start the race, but you could literally just take off before the timer's finished counting down. And there's no penalty for it. The race itself is pretty easy, but this just makes it all the more funny. Actually, one thing I'm noticing is that all the cutscenes in the game are rendered in widescreen. Why? The show wasn't in widescreen, only Big Picture Show was made in widescreen. There's no option to play the game in widescreen, so why are the cutscenes in widescreen? Such a weird design choice. But anyways, decent level. I wish the rest of the game had levels just as good as this one. It would have came closer to the Ed and Eddy game I wish we got. Nightmare on Ed Street. The Eds steal Jimmy's doll, Mr. Yum Yum, and put him in the old abandoned house. Eddie says he'll get Mr. Yum Yum back for a quarter, but Jimmy says he'll cough up once the deed is done. So the Eds head inside and...
Great! The door's locked!
Double D, you didn't even try to use the doorknob. Eddie compliments Ed for putting Mr. Yum Yum on the window, but Ed says he put him above the fireplace. Then the Crankers, good job Channel Federator, pop up and reveal that they stole Mr. Yum Yum and they'll give him back for good boyfriend presents.
Or maybe you'd like to skip the presents and go straight to the smooching.
So you head out to find a ship in a bottle for Lee. One thing I like is how Double D can activate various triggers and machines, including doors. Yes, you need Double D to open a fucking door. Would it have been too cost effective to just have Double D just open the door? Or have any Ed open the door? How fucking lazy do you have to be to not make a simple animation of a character opening a door? So you give the bottle to Lee and... what the fuck? Okay, so you head out to find a gift for Marie and... this game is so boring. Okay, this level's pretty boring, especially after coming off a pretty decent one. I hate the chicken segments. You get a jawbreaker if you successfully grab the chicken, but again, you can't earn that jawbreaker ever again, so it's just a waste of time. I hate how it keeps asking you to do the chicken game again after you decide to ignore it. As much as I love the GameCube controller, the analog stick is pretty sensitive, and you could sometimes hover over yes and causing the game to send you back further, just to chase the chicken again. There's no way to skip it, and you can't really say no to them. Why? So you get Marie a can of... something, and what the fuck? Why is she just spinning around like that? Was this the only idle animation Artificial Mind and Movement had? The last room opens for you to get May a taxidermy book. Alright. I haven't really talked about the graphics for this game just yet, but while I think the character models are fucking horrible, most of the environments and scenery look alright. And even though I love the show, I wouldn't really say it had the most breathtaking art style ever, so I do think the game does a fair job replicating the show, even if there are a few embarrassingly bad moments. Like in this level for instance, the old house has all these cracks and creaks all over it. Some of it are at ground level, but unlike the other walls, these have a different shade of purple. Usually when games do this, that means that there's a hidden secret behind the crack, so I use Batarette to crash into the wall and it turns out to just be a cheaply placed crack that's just a different shade of wall. Great. Good to see the graphic designers didn't know how to use the fucking color picking tool. So you give the book to May and what the fuck? You need to use Double D to disable the table saw, but why couldn't the level just end the second after you give May the book? It's like they want you to look at this mess. So you give Mr. Yum Yum back to Jimmy, and it turns out Mr. Yum Yum actually ended up getting sawed in half, and Jimmy runs away crying. What a thrilling ending. Ed marks the spot. Eddie's grabbing some jawbreakers from under his bed for him and the others to enjoy, but he finds out they've been stolen. However, they find a piece of a map, and Double D says they should find the other pieces of the map, and it would help them find the jawbreakers. Then they just leave, and somehow know where to start finding pieces of the map. I mean, at the end of the cutscene, Ed points out how there's footsteps in Eddie's room. I think it would have been cool attention to detail if there were footsteps on the ground at certain spots in the level, and maybe have the Ed say, hey look, more footprints or something like that, but they didn't bother to do that. Anyways, this level isn't that bad. Kind of like Ed on Arrival, the Eds get to use their abilities to their fullest potential, minus the gas balloons. Plus, the recycled music from the show is actually really great in this level. There are a lot of flubs, like when you cause Johnny to fly away.
I can see our house from here!
Aside from that, this is a pretty solid level, and a pretty decent way to end the game. Again, if the game had more levels like this, I probably would have loved it. So you find Jimmy trying to use a piece of the map for origami, and he says he'll trade for a jawbreaker. And like a certain someone brought up, we could easily give him one of the jawbreakers we could find in levels, but instead we give him a nest of spiders.
Spiders!
After that, you come across a lake with a few trailers parked in it, and you gotta make a pathway for the Eds to get to the other side. When I first played this level, I used Ed to knock these car ends in to make a path, and used Double D to knock these bridges down, but I had a little problem. These chandeliers were still in the trailers, and I had no idea how to knock them down. I used Batarette on them several times, but just recently, I discovered that you could knock these cinder blocks on the trailer down, and the chandeliers will fall down too. Before I discovered this, I could literally just have Double D jump across and just leave the other two Eds behind. Since this is the end of the level, it'll just load you to a newer part with the Eds back at your side. Okay, there's bad design, then there's just me being stupid. Sorry. But earlier, the game was interested in shoving its tutorials in my face, so why couldn't I get some Comic Sans telling me I could knock these cinder blocks down to knock the chandeliers down? Ugh. You find the final piece of the map in Victor's mouth, and just like in Ed on Arrival, you gotta drown the fucker to get the piece. Maybe if the other levels included more goats drowning, I would have loved this game. Okay, I have no idea why, but I love Eddie's reaction when Rolf tells him he has to fight Victor for the piece of the map. Just his expression alone makes me love it. So you put the map together and you find out the Jawbreakers were stolen by the Kanker Sisters. The Eds use a map to find something that just so happens to be located at the Kanker Sisters trailer? Okay, I'm sure the writers weren't aware that they were using a similar idea in Old Ed 11, but this is a severe coincidence. The Eds head into the Sisters trailer, which is relocated apparently. Eddie finds a lever that Double D tells him not to pull, but just before Eddie even touches the lever, the Eds fall through a trap door. Eddie didn't even touch the lever. Why was there even a lever right there? To trick the Eds to do what exactly? After recovering from the fall, the Kankers appear and chase the Eds through a tunnel of puzzles. Somehow, the Kankers get in front of them in the final area of the tunnel and wait, is this the final boss? Yeah, it is, and it's pretty basic and kind of dull. You just toss trash cans at these electric boxes and batter at the Kankers down. The Kankers keep throwing kisses at you, and these damn red squirrels keep getting in the way. Seriously, fuck off, Conker!
Okay, I'd like to get offended now.
Sorry. You beat the Kankers and get the Jawbreakers back, and again, truly amazing use of Flash here. The Eds end up getting cornered by the Kanker Sisters, and that's it. That's the level. Yeah, that's the game. Well, at least it was short. This would be the end, but alas, there are unlockables, which includes 2 more levels. Edzilla. The level opens up with Edtropolis. Yeah, and Eddie and Double D act as if this is the first ever time they've tried this. However, Ed ends up having a severe hallucination and thinks he's a monster. So this is basically a cross between Urban Ed and the day that Ed stood still. Alright. We start out the level, and it seems like midway an artificial mind decided to stop being lazy and somewhat gave Ed his own costume for this level. It doesn't look exactly like his costume in the original episode, but it's an effort, I guess. This is also the only level where just one Ed is playable, but this level's design is extremely confusing. I'm not saying the level itself is pretty difficultly structured, it's pretty basic, I'm more talking about the look of the level. It's pretty clear that they're trying to pay homage to the old creature features from the 50s, which is why I assume most of the cities are in black and white, but Ed isn't in black and white. Plus, a couple buildings are not in black and white, nor is the final boss represented in black and white. It's really awkward. All they had to do was just put a cheap looking black and white filter on this level, and maybe I would have gotten a clear idea on what they're trying to do, but again, they just didn't. Just another missed opportunity. The objective in this level is to knock down a bunch of buildings and fight the Kankerator at the end to save the city? What? There are some tanks on the ground that are shooting at you, and you could smash them with your face, and you could even pick them up and throw them at other tanks and a few buildings. That's pretty cool. During the final boss, you use giant wads of chunky puffs to throw at the Kankers. That's something, I guess. All in all, decent level, but Psychonauts did it better. Rebel Robot Ranch. Just from the title, you can see that this is going to be a callback to Dawn of the Eds, the Robot Planet episode. Ed gets captured by the robots, so Double D and Eddie have to go save him. The level itself is pretty meh, I guess. I do like the environments and I like the choice of music, but it's a pretty forgettable level. And if you play the game in sequence, it's essentially the final level. That's kinda disappointing. The Eds do get different outfits, but they're more just reskins and don't really give them any sort of special power, except that Double D's roller is now a lightsaber and his slingshot is now a ray gun. Yeah, that's about it. The final boss can actually be pretty difficult until you find this area where the boss can't shoot at you, and if you just aim it properly, without hitting the toxic waste barrel, you can easily beat this boss. There's nothing else I could really say about this level. It's a decent callback to Dawn of the Eds, but there's not really enough here to offer an interesting level. Also, after you save Ed, turn the camera around to find the path you're supposed to go down. The camera in this game is okay, but there are some points where it's not facing the direction you're supposed to go and can cause you to do a lot of pointless backtracking. So those were all the levels. You're probably thinking, really? Is that all the game has to offer? And you're right. But there are a few unlockables after you obtain all the jawbreakers and get all the Easter eggs and patches of clothing. The Easter eggs are pretty generic. You can have a tiny head that I'd like to think is a cute callback to when Eddie got his head shrunk and X marks the head, but it's pretty obvious that the game designers didn't care and were just trying to emulate GoldenEye on N64 because there's also an option to have a bigger head. You can also wear the spacesuit, but you can't wear them while you're in the cul-de-sac, which is weird because you can have a big head and small head in the cul-de-sac. But the spacesuits are only limited to the levels. He also doesn't have his lightsaber or ray gun. Odd. There are also these 3 movie booths located around the cul-de-sac. While I'm not a fan of the cutscenes, I think it would have been kinda neat to see these cutscenes through these booths. But instead we get 3 random things. One of them is a commercial for the game. I hate the guy who narrates these commercials, by the way.
In this tag team adventure, switch Eds on the fly to take advantage of their unique abilities.
The other booth has, well, take a look.
I am cool like a cabbage, guys.
Violence only begets violence, Eddy.
Stupid animals think they're so cute.
Wow, that was worth going through the effort of unlocking. And I don't remember what this booth plays. Oh, fuck.
I saw you, didn't see your pain. Was it termites? I knew we'd be best friends for life when I saved you from that chipper. My best friend Plank. My best friend Plank. My best friend Plank. You're my best friend Plank.
Okay. That's one booth worth unlocking. Would have been cool if the Incredible Shrieking Day was in one of these booths. Oh well. The cheats are also pretty basic. You can have unlimited stealth in levels and you can run fast. You can also have unlimited damage, which can make a lot of the bosses become a complete joke. It's hysterical seeing these bosses go down with just one hit. Plus the fast run option just looks too damn funny. I laughed so hard when I saw this. Just look at him go. Okay, all in all, Eddy the Mis-Edventures isn't that bad a game. There are some examples of bad level design and just blatant laziness, but I do think the original cast doing the voices is pretty neat. I appreciate how they tried to make it look like the show, and I even appreciate that there's no life system. And again, I love how they use music from the show. Seriously, with game rip soundtracks, this is probably the closest we're ever going to have an actual downloadable soundtracks from the show. It's just a shame a lot of the music is compressed to some really shitty sound quality. Plus the 2D cutscenes are cheaply made in Flash and the in-game cutscenes look so terrible. Aside from one expression from Eddy. Come on, that's always great to look at. And aside from 2 decent levels, 1 okay level, and maybe a few of the bonus Easter eggs, is this game really worth playing? No, I wouldn't really recommend playing it, even if you're a fan of the show, especially since most of the ideas from this game came from much more enjoyable episodes. You could easily just go rewatch those episodes instead, not to mention, the show has much better animation. I guess I'm really not that much into the game since, well, it's supposed to be Ed, Edd and Eddy, one of the most creative and imaginative shows on Cartoon Network that ended up getting a pretty average and generic platformer just released after the show's heyday. I'm sure this game had a relatively small budget, but I really think Cartoon Network dropped the ball with this one. You're better off just watching a walkthrough of the game than actually playing it. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Well, not all licensed games are that great. I mean, there are some diamonds in the rough, like the SpongeBob games and the first couple Spider-Man games, but I still feel like a cartoon like Ed, Edd and Eddy should have gotten something better. I mean, it was one of the most creative and most imaginative shows ever put on Cartoon Network, and that's all we got. Oh well, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Perhaps there are just some TV shows that shouldn't become video games in the same way that video games shouldn't become TV shows or movies. Who knows? Who cares? Next time on Cooper's Perspective, I figured we'd go back one generation to a video game that I've been very familiar with since I was a little kid. It's Snowboard Kids on Nintendo 64. Until then, thank you for watching, and seeing how this is the first episode and all, yeah. Welcome to Cooper's Perspective.
Let's mambo! And syncopated style.